With about 8 minutes left in our program, let me come back to the release of WNBA star Brittany Griner. President Biden did speak at the White House just a few minutes ago. This is just about a minute of his remarks.
Wife Sherelle, in the Oval Office, I spoke with Brittany Griner. She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances, Brittany will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. This is a day we've worked toward for a long time. She wrote to me back in July. She didn't ask for special treatment, even though we've been working on a release from the day one. She requested a simple quote, "Please don't forget about me and the other American detainees. Please do all you can to bring us home." We never forgot about Brittany. We've not forgotten about Paul Whelan, who's been unjustly detained in Russia for years. This was not a choice of which American to bring home. We brought home Trevor Reed when we had a chance early this year. Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittany's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up. We will never give up.
President Biden from the White House just a few minutes ago. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I want to know more about this arms dealer that we've traded Brittany Griner for. I'm delighted she's released. That was a terribly unjust and must have been a very traumatic experience in her life. But and I know nothing about this arms dealer.
Victor Bout, his name. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been trying to get him back. He's so far served 11 years of a 25-year sentence in the United States and is now free in Russia.
My concern is that sounds like a very, very dangerous individual, and I would be very concerned that if he resumed his activities after we've now released him for Brittany Griner, that a lot of people could die. That would be my concern. And again, I don't know. I want to look into it.
Speaking of Ukraine, or Russia and Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, what are your thoughts on additional funding for Ukraine in the war against Russia?
Well, we've already given about $55 billion to that cause. I supported that because I thought it was very important that Ukraine either prevail or at least inflict such unacceptable damage on Russia that every other rogue nation around the world thinks twice before doing the same thing, and I think we've accomplished that. But I look at the EU, they've only given about $16 billion. This is not yet an American security threat. This is a European security threat. It is happening on their doorstep, and they've only contributed about a third of what the United States has already provided. Now, granted, their GDP is about half of ours, but this is a much more important issue to them than it is to the United States. So I'm not going to support any more aid until we see the European Union at least match what we're doing. And then I also want to know where all of that aid went. Did it go for its intended purposes? And finally, I want to be sure that there was not undue influence on this administration because of the Biden family's business dealings with Ukrainian interests like Burisma.
With a few minutes before the House comes in, we'll just keep taking your calls until those doors open and they gavel in. This is Tom in Carroll Stream, Illinois, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Congressman, thank you for your work. You have a question, a couple of quick questions, but essentially, do you believe the new Republican majority in the House will go to a more regular order on the appropriations bill specifically for two reasons? One, to highlight the spending issues and to try to get a grip on the spending, but also to then signal to the American people some of the waste as well as some of the excessiveness in the spending bills so that the people can have a better understanding as to what's taking place in the appropriations process, which has been badly damaged. And just as a side note, in reference to the Supreme Court case yesterday, in reference to the legislatures and the state Supreme Courts ordering new congressional maps, I've always felt that it's wrong for the judicial body to draw the congressional maps. It's one thing to maybe rule that that the congressional maps may not, meet the voting rights standards or what have you, but to actually draw them, I think it would be helpful if the U.S. Supreme Court would stipulate that the legislatures should be drawing the maps regardless of what a court may find. So,
well, that's what the Constitution says very specifically with respect to the choosing presidential electors. They will be chosen in a manner decided by the state legislatures. And I think the issue that the Supreme Court is hearing is to what extent do the other institutions within a state have a say in this? The legislatures are a creature of the state constitutions. So it becomes a very interesting legal question. I don't have the answer for it, but it's a very legitimate question because that was a central question that was raised at the Constitutional Convention. How do we choose a president? And there were a number of different provisions offered. One was to have the governors sit down and elect. And the delegates thought that was much too small a group. You could have all sorts of shady deals going on. They discussed having the president elected from the entire country, but then you had the problem with rural areas being ignored. The system they ultimately created, I think, is a brilliant system. The question before the court is whether or not a legislature is also bound by other institutions created by the same state constitution. I don't know the answer to that question, and I'll wait to see what the court has to say on it.
The other question was about whether
budget.
they Republicans can and will get to regular order.
And that's a critically important question. We have to. I think one of the great mortal perils facing our country, there are actually two of them. One is our collapsing border, but the other is our collapsing finances. History is warning us that countries that bankrupt themselves aren't around very long, because before you can provide for the common defense or promote the general welfare, you have to be able to pay for it, and the ability of our country to do so is coming into grave question. I agree with you completely. We've got to get back to regular order, and that means to follow the budget process meticulously. The Budget Act of 1974 lays out, I think, an absolutely brilliant, logical process to control spending. The problem is it hasn't been followed in all the years I've been in Congress. We need to honor it to the letter and to follow it. Whether we do or not remains to be seen. It's a tall order because you have a wide gulf now between the House and the Senate in its attitude towards spending.
And of course, Congressman Tom McClintock will be a senior member of the Budget Committee in the majority in the 118th Congress, also a member of the Judiciary Committee. And we always appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.